President of Open Road Auto Group, Michael Morais. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Well, thank you, everybody. Sam,
Hey,
Yuli,
Michael.
thank you. I'm a big fan of the show. Thank you for having me today.
Thanks for being on. Thanks for sharing your perspectives with us. So before we get to the topic and the reason why you're here today, we want to go with our signature question, which is how's biz? And as part of that, tell us a little bit about yourself and your auto group.
Well, look, I wouldn't say it's as robust as the report just echoed.
Yeah,
However,
I agree.
it is better. You're seeing a little bit of urgency on what we have for electric cars right now. You're seeing those last consumer rush. I guess if you could say there's some seasonality or some forced sales. People know that the $7,500 federal credit's going away and they're coming in. We're seeing great movement there. As far as used cars, we're definitely having one of our better months of the year. I'm in the Northeast predominantly, so Open Road Auto Group is 20 dealerships in the Northeast, mostly import brands, BMW, Mercedes, Audi in New York City, Volkswagen, Honda, Acura, Mazda, as well as a couple of domestic. We have Chevy and we have Cadillac, General Motors, 1,100 employees. And again, we're really tri-state, mostly predominantly New Jersey and New York City.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that insight. Your geography's fun. Well, great franchises too. So you're on to talk about something interesting that happened to you recently. Tell us a little bit about this situation that has developed with a lead provider.
Well, yeah, I love your platform because it gives dealers a chance to come in and give a little dealer beware. And I
Yeah,
was so frustrated on Friday night, and I really I thank Michelle in your office for listening
he's
to me.
awesome.
She gave me an hour of
Yes.
therapy after I was done venting my frustration to her. I immediately called her after my attorney, and he said, "Sure, go right ahead and let it rip," because I've been fighting this battle for a decade. From when Carfax would come in on holidays with their representatives and decorate our trees in our showroom with Carfax stuffed
Yeah.
animals, and
Yeah.
you know I would say, please kindly stop decorating, stop hanging Carfax posters all over our showrooms. We give you $3,000 a month for the dignity of you know having exposure and having vehicle history reports and being on your listings, which is a great tool, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm not here to bash anybody's actual software or their tool. They're viable. They do bring sales. Unfortunately, they also compete for our inorganic search. So that causes a bit of flux, because when you really think about it, all the dealers are ending up, giving them the money to basically buy paid search for pre-owned, which, kicks us down the funnel quite a bit on the page for the vehicles we're listing. But, the frustrating thing that happened last week was Car Gurus, who we've had a partnership with on and off for over 10 years. In 2023, I exited almost every third-party vendor contract. We were cascading off the profits of the, supernatural COVID.
Yep.
We
hmm
could do no wrong. I had a PhD in profitability. It was fantastic, and we were doing such a great job. And then all of a sudden, we were dumb again, and we were starting to fall.
Yeah.
We didn't. We looked at some of our contracts, and our structures. I'm the president of Open Road Auto Group. We have 5 vice presidents that run 4 stores each, and our VPs and I meet weekly. And I keep a division for myself to run as well as a vice president, because I want to
Yeah.
understand boots to the ground. And it was a really interesting conversation. Back then, what triggered our departure and reevaluation of our third-party contracts was, a young lady came in from Carfax and basically said, "You're the only store I haven't been able to sign up in your group." I said, "Really? Tell me more." And told me all about this particular service that Carfax offered, Carfax for Life, which was basically to notify customers about recalls. And I kind of
It's a
looked at
service
her.
product. Yeah, it's a service notification product.
hmm
Yeah, I'm aware
And I
of it.
said,
Yep.
well, with that said, it's a solid product. I said, but why would I pay you for that when really my OEMs do that, and we do that? And I just stared, and I just realized that every other service manager in my company basically said yes and nodded to a $1,100 upcharge on 20 stores. It's $300,000 a year. Pack it
Yeah.
on. So I started to
Yeah.
reevaluate all of our contracts, and again, for decades, I've been saying there's got to be a bottleneck when it comes to who makes that decision for signing. And this is my caution to my fellow dealers: is look, make sure that you control and micromanage your third-party vendors, because what you think you signed for 3 years ago for $2,100 per month is now probably $3,800 a month, and you're probably asking yourself, what the heck happened? And
Yeah.
For sure.
That was pretty much us in December of 2023. We re-signed up with everybody slowly. Car Gurus came right back to the table with a sort of a price adjustment for us, and grateful. It went really well, and confirmed that any and all changes in price, changes in services, updates to services would have to come through my office and my office exclusively. So fast forward to last week, and why I'm probably here today is
Uh-huh.
we found out last week in an email that my five of our stores that weren't in my division, ironically, they were in all the other divisions, and had been chosen to do a pilot, a beta test, if you will, for a new service, an enhanced pricing tool for Car Gurus. And they said, "Well, that's interesting." I said, "And yeah, it's been running for 90 days,
Lucky
by the way."
them. But how much does it
Oh,
cost? Lucky them, but how much does it cost, right? Yeah.
you know what,
For the
Sam?
privilege.
They never got that far. At
Oh,
that
okay.
point, I was already saying, "Wait a minute." So our BDC managers were involved. We found out that all of our BDC managers were being they'd been trained, they'd been involved in it, and I said, "So you took my employees and you used them for your benefit on a beta test for a product you're bringing to market. Now you're walking it back to me to say, by the way, we'd like you to sign up for it because we're going to make a deal for you." They never got that far. I basically proposed to them. I said, "Look, you violated actually our sales in those 5
Agreement.
stores went down. You violated our
Hmm.
agreement," which I had emails back and forth that were acknowledged by the local reps. And this changed our strategy going forward, which I'll go through in a minute. What we are doing to do to change this process for all third-party vendors. But for us, we looked at this and said, you know, this price strategy tool detracted from our typical business model. And when you're looking, and sometimes when you're looking at the market as a whole, especially for pre-owned, it can create a downward funnel of price.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at Yuli's, if I'm a pre-owned manager and I'm over in Bridgewater, New Jersey, and Yuli's over in, let's say, Edison, New Jersey, and he's got a Jeep Wrangler at a certain price, and I look at his and I say, "Well, I got to be $500 lower," and you get that behavior with pre-owned managers,
Sure.
right? But we all have learned that, hey, look, no two pre-owned vehicles are the same. There's different levels of condition, ownership, multi-ownership versus just one owner. There are different factors that create that car. The truth is, what we train our management team in our stores is, look, the car stands on its own. You own it for X. We watch MMR. That's truly the only thing we look at for pricing is, what will this car, we keep our inventory for 60 days. At 60 days, we used to keep it after COVID strictly internal. If it was a retail piece, look, even if this car needed a transmission, we would do the work, but we'd always keep the retail piece. It was too hard to source for a while. But then
Yeah.
leasing came back, and then we had a brief reintroduction of off lease. The off lease for Northeast, anyways, robust up until
Yeah.
the second and third quarter of 2025. Obviously, we've seen that shrinkage from the whiplash effect of COVID come in, and now we haven't had that off lease sourcing. So we've been very protective of what we've had, but it's been hard to ignore with interest rates still being high. Actually, pre-owned sales through the dealership have dropped quite a bit, but the auction sale has been incredible. We've been
Yeah.
averaging over $1,700 at the auction, and we've
Wow.
taken a larger percentage. We'll run 180 to 200 cars every other week, and we're averaging about 1,700 per car. It
Wow.
has been incredibly robust. And so, we use that MMR report to say, well, what's our worst case scenario? Well, you keep the car for 60 days and you have to get rid of it. That's what we use when we're pricing a pre-owned vehicle, and when we're trading it in, when we're owning it. And then, so when we're pricing it to the street, I'm really not worried about what the other dealers are doing. Anyway, this pricing tool, I think, might have detracted our team from our internal processes, which disturbed me. And then to
Yeah.
get back to where, again, they used our stores to test their products and benefit
Yeah.
themselves. So my response to Car Gurus was simply, look, for the 90 days that you tested us, I want our money back for the group, for our subscription. And for
What
the
was the
6 months.
response?
Well, hold on. That wasn't, being in the car dealership world and,
Yeah.
and understanding, hey, we're deal makers. I also wanted the rest of the year
Yeah.
absolutely for free. They
Yeah.
politely declined my offer and told me to basically, and they understand
Go
at
pound
September
sand.
1, should they say no, this relationship is now permanently ended. I've terminated the relationship. We're probably not going to seek legal action at this point due to the nature of the complaint being, look, I'm going to not spend all this money to chase. It's not about money. It's about principle. It's
Yeah.
about, look,
Yeah.
you have a business, you have a dealership, you have partnerships, and you also have, you enter into agreements with vendors, but it's not a license for them to come in and camp out in your dealership and turn their business into, turn your showroom into their business, playground. And it can't be that way. And,
Yeah, my question was going to be just that, right? You have this decree that everything's going to funnel through your office. You're the decision maker for signing all contracts. How then did this company or come in and kind of nestle up and say, "Hey, we're going to do this"? How are these
Well,
decisions made without the oversight of the VPs there?
so their answer was, it's absolutely free. So we're not violating any agreement because we didn't charge you. No, but you
Huh?
benefited from this, and
Right?
that's where the violation comes in. And again,
Yeah.
am I seeking legal remedies? No, at this point, you know what? This was a probably about a $600,000 account that's completely gone. And yes, the
yeah.
best deals in life you have to be willing to walk away from, and we're gone. And they can
Yeah.
Yeah.
they can call other vendors that we've dealt
So,
with. When we're gone for good, and
So
and
it's
we're gone.
interesting. This really isn't just this isn't really commentary on that particular vendor. That's it. This is commentary on in automotive. We're surrounded by vendor partners, people that have permission by us to walk into stores and help
Mhm.
us achieve and accomplish our goal. And it's a fascinating masterclass on what is the line between help and hurt.
Yeah.
And there are a couple things I noticed in what you said. So I'd love for you to give our audience, our auto dealer audience that's listening to this, your takeaways after this experience, because it's painful, right? Like they provided a service for you, they violated what you felt like was that obligation, and now you've got to take action that may have create additional challenges, right? So
Mhm.
so it's interesting. Uh, where is that line? Like, I think you said at some point, you said somebody came in and said, "Well, hey, I've signed up all the other stores. You're the only other one. How do we get you signed up?" That's a
Yeah.
that's a little bit of a sales job. Tell us about that, and like that's kind of how you uncovered it, right? And how you
Yeah,
started to dig
and,
deep.
and that was a different vendor. This wasn't Car Gurus. This was a different
Okay,
vendor, and this was in
okay,
the December of 2023. And I just looked at this young lady and I said, I'm sorry. What do you mean? Now we have standard operating procedure guidebook in our company that everybody from
yeah,
every management level has been instructed and signed off on, that says all third party, any services, any changes to services, anything, you are not allowed to sign up for anything. Everything that comes through the office of the president of the
yeah,
company. And you know this is how we do business. We do micromanage that because if you left it wide open, before you know it, you're going to be
yeah,
bogged down with incredible expenses. So,
yeah,
and we communicate. Listen, I'm a hands-on operator. I'm in the office every day, 5 days a week. Our vice presidents and I work out of our corporate center in Bridgewater every Thursday.
you're
We're all
you're
together for eight
available to
hours.
these vendors. Yeah, they
Yeah.
can have a conversation with you. They can reach
Correct.
out and have that conversation, right? So what was the nature of the pilot that Car Gurus did that created this result, in
So
your opinion?
they explained that the nature of this was a pricing tool that
Okay.
they're developing. And
Yeah.
apparently it's fully developed, and they were just test driving it so
Test
that
it.
they were going to use my own employees to come to me and advocate for this tool. And
Yeah.
I'm like, wow,
So
that's a very foolish way to take on this approach.
For
yeah.
sure.
And in your opinion, what gave them the kind of the impression that they could do that they could
you
change
know
your business operation that way?
their justification is, oh, well, this is absolutely for free. But this is like,
Yeah.
for those parents out there that have a young child, this is
Yeah,
kind of like
Exactly.
when my
that's
daughter
your
used to.
culture. That's
This is when
your
yeah,
operating
my daughter
procedures.
would
Yeah.
come to me and say, "Listen, Dad, Mom said I can have two friends sleep over tonight if it's
Yeah.
okay with you." And I said,
Yeah.
"Well, okay." And then my wife would say, "Did you just tell our daughter that you can have two kids sleep over tonight on a school night?" And I said, "No, well, she told me that you told me that she could do it." And,
Yeah.
and and that's sort of what this sort of scheme is almost about, is like, well, they come in and they give it to your people for free, and then they get your people to come to you and say, "We must have this." And it was just, I'm like, No, we have to monitor our expenses. We also have to look at what our sales are. What's our available turn? Have we been monitoring the turn in your stores? Oh, by the way, we did look at the last 90 days in that store, and you sold on the average 5 less units per store for those
Yeah.
90 days. What's the
Yeah.
answer to that? Oh, well, that was because the
Yeah.
market's been slow and we've been sending more cars to the auction. And I said, what? That's preposterous. So at the end of the day, what we did is we're entering into we're actually drawing up a new vendor agreement for all third-party vendors. It's going to be strict and it has to be signed not by the local area rep, but it's got to have to be signed by the regional manager or the CEO to say, look, if you want to do business with our organization, if you want to do business with our dealership, you're going to have to sign an understanding letter that says any services, upgrades of any kind, even for free, cannot be any changes to our services have to be discussed with the dealer principal
Yeah.
with no exception to the rule, or the services are cancelable immediately.
So you're a large dealer group. You've uncovered this and you're taking actions to stop it. What steps or advice would you give to other dealers watching this show right now with multiple rooftops that have multiple vendors? Like, how do you find this? How do you uncover this? And then I would presume part of your advice would be part of this agreement. But what's your advice to dealers today to
But
limit this, to prevent this from happening?
first thing, go back and look at every contract and say, what did I sign up for? How much was my
Yeah.
rate? And how much am I paying today? Go back to if you have a payables clerk, if you have a single point store, sit with your office manager, your controller. If you're in a group, get with your CFO, review all these contracts, look at the scope of services. Anybody tells you, well, it's got to be more money because your Honda store does 5,000 cars a year versus your Volkswagen store that does 800 cars a year is usually, it's nonsense. The software is paid for. Work your best deal, and every deal that you do work, please understand you have to also manage the change factor, right? They're going to come in and
Yeah.
change this. It's not a matter. What we've learned from COVID was, we were doing so well at COVID that we got complacent. We took our eye off the
Yeah.
ball for about 24 months because the profits were supernatural. And who could complain about those months between 2022 and 21, 22, 23.
Sure.
And then as we started to see it, the tide pull back out a little, we noticed, hey, look, there's definitely some issues here. Like I said, I wasn't even looking. I just happened to
Pricing
be at
creep is a
I
big
happened to
issue,
be at our
right?
Chevy dealership
Yeah.
on a Tuesday, and a young
Yeah.
rep walks in and she said, "Oh my God, Mike Morais, I've been looking for you. You're the only store, you're the only division in your company that hasn't signed up for this particular service." I said, "That's interesting because nobody's allowed to sign up for any service in our company without my
Yeah.
direct authority and so an
Yeah.
approval." And so look, everybody, even our vice presidents were like, I didn't sign up for this." Well, who
Yeah.
signed up for it? We
Yeah.
don't think that anybody was even offered it in certain, and I can't, accuse anybody. I can only tell, look, to all the dealers out there, go through your contracts, look at what you're paying today, check and see if you've had a price increase since COVID, because I guarantee most have and haven't even gotten to it yet. And then honestly, after COVID, right around December of 2023, as we were starting to, normalize, we started to review and walk away because believe
Yeah.
me, in December of 2023, the last thing you were going to get was sympathy or empathy from a third-party vendor and why you needed price
Yeah.
decreases.
Yeah.
So the only thing that worked for us was actually walking away.
So,
Yeah.
and I agree with that. It's interesting in our world, we see that. We see the pricing creep on vendor services, and you've got to be just vigilant in watching it and then pushing back and challenging it. But let me also challenge what you're talking about just a little bit. So, if you allow platform managers, VPs, and GMs to have accountability for processes in their store, and you want them to have P&L responsibility, bottom line, do you risk by locking it all up and not allowing any kind of innovation, do you risk taking away the ability to find new and interesting ways to deliver products and services to the ground? Like, could there be a freezing effect to locking it up too tightly and not allowing vendor partners to come in and, I mean, they need to do it the right way. That would be the big call here, I guess. But what's your thought on that? Because there is a balance, isn't there, a little bit?
Yeah, Sam, you're right. Listen, I'm not opposed to new innovations. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just met with an incredible software company yesterday that handles backstop calling. And Andrew Paul and I, our vice president for all of our BMW stores, and we met at BMW of Morristown with this young lady out of DC. And her tool was fantastic. It's basically transcribes voicemail messages, puts it on a dashboard for a manager so he could say, look, this has
That's
actually, and
cool.
they pick up word tracks that says like, this is fire. This is a
Yeah.
hot system. Get on it,
Mhm.
and allows for that sort of. So yeah, no, we're still looking at all new software that helps us be better dealers and deliver better customer service. I am
Yep.
super open minded to that, but you got to walk through the front door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to do it the right way. You can't sneak it in. And my gosh, changing a business system of a large organization, the financial impact downside, if it doesn't go well, I don't want to
Oh,
be the
yeah.
person responsible for that or liable for it. So I love it. DriveStar Auto says online, third-party vendors must be looked after as they change the prices for services very often. Lauren Klein says a great dealer partner doesn't create problems, they solve them. And I think to your point, Mike, they do it up front so that everybody can see it. And then Daniel Gonzalez says, hire managers who have the lights on and don't just say yes to everything offered. It is an interesting point. Some people in the store take a shotgun approach, I think, in automotive, where it's like they'll buy every little shiny thing and just see what sticks. And what you're talking about in terms of vendor management helps prevent that, right? Because you have to say no a lot, don't you, Mike, in your role?
Well, in our business, we have to take it in with a wheelbarrow, give it out with an eyedropper. We also
Yeah.
try to say to our people, look, they're paid. Our model pays our management team on gross. Okay. We want them to go out and raise, the earnings as high as they can. And again, if you give them every tool to go do that and you give them complete autonomy to sign on for every service and they're not paid on net profit, well, you're doing the business a disservice because you're
Yeah.
probably not entering into the best deals. What
Yeah.
allows me to do something that my other managers, including our vice presidents, can't do is I can leverage I'm coming in with a 20 store buy. A vice president's coming in with a 4 store purchase, but I'm coming
Yeah,
in with a
that's
20
right.
store purchase. So I'm going to have the
Yeah.
leverage to make the best deal. So what I've said to my team is, look, I get paid the way you all do off net profit. Let me help you help all of us by giving me, if someone comes in with a great idea and you're passionate about it, I'll make time. I'll come to the store. I'll come to the meeting. I'm like I said, I'm as boots on the ground as you could probably ask for. So I'll be
Yeah.
there, and I'll be there tomorrow. Let's meet with them if they're still in town. Have them come into our corporate office. We meet every Thursday. Let's innovate. Let's get better. We want to be better. We chase volume. We want to be the best at what we do, and we want the best tools for our people. So no question. But when it comes to locking in the price, let me negotiate.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Does the OEM relationship fall into this a little bit? Because the OEMs notoriously come in and do similar, right? But they have a I guess they've got a dog in the race, right?
I'm going to tell you the best story. I just got this yesterday about Volvo. So, my vice president Joe Bellotti calls me up and says, "Hey, Volvo, we're already signed on with My Karma, full suite, but Volvo's got a special service innovation package
Yeah.
for all the dealers in the
Lovely.
country, right? All the
Oh,
dealers in the
lovely.
country, and their My Karma price is $150 more than I negotiated for our 20 store group. How's that
Yeah.
possible?" And I
Yeah.
just laughed. I'm like, this is impossible that we got a better deal than they did. And I'm like,
Yeah.
so I wish that
Or is there something a little extra in that for them, though, is the
I,
question. That might be
I
the
just,
case.
I wish our OEM partners, focused on just making, make their profit on selling cars and service, and let us make our best deals with these vendors instead of they make their
Yeah.
best deal with the vendors, which
Yeah.
by the way, BMW's been notorious for this for years. So how many times I've had to deal with so many third-party vendors that have come in and like Mastermind and whatever and said, well, I can give you that rate for all your other stores, but the BMW stores have to be up here, but it applies to your co-op. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? So
Oh,
we've had this move many times.
which co-op could be a completely separate conversation today, which unfortunately we don't have time for. But Mike Morais, president of Open Road Auto Group, thank you for this masterclass in vendor negotiation, in making sure that pricing is accurate and that no new programs are put in place without obviously our understanding. I sincerely hope you get this issue resolved, and really thank you for helping all of us
Yeah.
other dealers see something that potentially could be a big problem and something that we see in our world, and I'm sure many others see. So thanks for being on the show today, Mike.
Sam Yulee, thank you so much. And again, continued success on the show. Thank you. We appreciate everything you
Thank
do
you.
for us.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Michael.